Thanks, worship team and church. So we are, if you're joining us this morning, we're actually ending a series. We've gone through Titus 2:14 and just seen how that verse actually shows us a little bit of a walk with the Lord to maturity from not knowing Him in the first place. Okay, what Jesus has done for us and walking forward. So we've seen how Christ redeems us, but not only that, how He trains us in purity with His Word. So the Bible, how He trains us in trials and temptations and with the Holy Spirit to be pure in our mind, our actions, and our devotion to Him. Okay, so that's what we've looked at. And last week, we saw that this all is to be His own possession. Okay, so to be His possession, and we looked at that and what that is. But we're looking at the final part this morning. And I wanted to just, show you my painting skills, or lack thereof. And so and literally there's not a lot of skill here, so don't expect anything this morning. But even as if you paint, I'm sure Glenn and Renee and others can let us know as well. But there's a certain vision first that comes to mind. I mean, you do get abstract art nowadays, so maybe you just paint and you see how it looks and you can sell that. But normally there's a vision in the artist's mind, okay, of what I'm going to paint. And now knowing what I'm going to paint, I can start painting certain things in line with what I'm going to paint. So you might not see it yet, and you might not see it well, but there is a vision, that does go at the end of this. But the artist will have something in their mind, something that they want to try and do, that they want to try and paint as they go along. And so they have this in their mind. Now, I don't know how good your painting skills are, but I want you to keep that in mind. And we'll add to that maybe in a bit, and it might confuse you more. But as we do that, I want you to keep that in mind as we read Titus 2:14. And so it just says, again, speaking of Jesus, who gave Himself for us, and this is what our series is on, to redeem us from all lawlessness and to purify for Himself a people for His own possession who are zealous for good works. Okay, and we've broken that up. We've gone through exactly what that means. But over here this morning, I want us to see that God purifies us. We've looked a lot at that purity, to be a people that His own possession. But here this morning, He also purifies us so that we can be a people who are zealous for good works. That's who He desires we be. He desires that we be pure, that we be walking with Him closely, but He desires that we be a people that are zealous for good works. Now, what does that mean? Zealous, if you look at it, it just means zealous enthusiasm, boiling over with passion, okay, is this word deeply committed. But what helps us understand this word zealous a bit better is actually understanding how it was first used in the time biblically. There was a group called zealots, okay, and they were pretty charged people. They were very passionate and diligent in what they did, but they were passionate about adhering to the Mosaic law. Okay, so the Torah, what Moses had written down. They were really passionate about this, extreme, boiling over with this passion. They were known as extremists. Okay, and there was even a zealot that followed the Lord, okay, as you see that. So all people followed Him. But over here, there's an endeavoring or a pushing, even sometimes by violence, to get across what they would want. So, they didn't want anyone to break religious law, the Mosaic law over here. And so to make sure that no one went against it, we would, they would never go against the Mosaic law. And if others go against it, hey, don't go against it. Hey, we'll even bring harm if need be, that you don't go against it. That's how passionate they were. Okay, did they use that in the right vein there? No, but that's where the word zealous comes from. It's this passion, this boiling over of emotion. Because you're so passionate about something, you want people to adhere to something, to do something that you think is best. Okay, and over here, we see that it went to the extreme with the zealots. We're not to push it to that extreme or to that fault, but over here, we're called to see the passion, the desire, and the enthusiasm. That's what it means to be zealous for good works. You have to be passionate, to desire, and to have that enthusiasm. Okay? That's the word over here, zealous. But zealous for what? What are we to be this passionate about? That not only for ourselves, but we want this for others. We desire it for everyone. We see it as good, and we go to measures to try and help that happen. We're to be zealous for good works. So me and you are to be passionate about good works. Passionate for good works. Again, I want to break that up because we can have our own mindset about good works, simple words. Okay, but when we break it down, just in the Greek a bit, it helps us understand. Good over here is beautiful, fair, honest, worthy. Beautiful works, fair works, honest works, worthy works, commendable works in a commendable manner that are valuable, a good that inspires. And so we're to be zealous, we're to be passionate for beautiful, fair, honest, worthy works. And works over here is a deed or an action, a labor. And so beautiful, valuable, commendable, worthy, honest actions and deeds. And you won't do it to the point of extremism like we saw, but we are to pursue this so much. It's to be our aim. We're to work towards it, make a plan for it. This is to be one of our, if you will, goals in life. Because as you've seen through the passage, our purity is a non-negotiable. We're only pure in Jesus, we've seen in our passage, but then the Lord, as his children, desires to walk with us in purity, to make us more like Christ-like, to walk of a child of him. Another mark of a child of the Lord is that we are zealous for good works. It's almost an outward action thing that shows us that it's sincere inside. Colossians 1, 28 and 29, I want to look at for us. Just says, him we proclaim, warning everyone and teaching everyone with all wisdom, that we may present everyone mature in Christ. For this I toil, struggling with all his energy that he powerfully works within me. And so sometimes we can hear a concept, but how to put that into practice is a bit hard. And so over here this morning, we see that a mark of a child of the Lord is actually to be zealous for good works. But what does that look like? And over here we have an example in Paul. The work that the Lord gave him, we see over here that he toils for this. So the actions, the deeds, the work that the Lord specifically gave Paul to do, he toils for this. That's to labor. That's to be weary, to feel fatigue. Now, I don't know about you, but maybe after a week of long work, if there's been manual labor, or you've had to put your mind to the test and you had to work overtime, and there's certain things, and you get home and there's still things to do. After a long week, sometimes you feel weary, you feel fatigued. That's here how Paul felt after going through and after putting his energy into the work and the deeds and the actions that the Lord wanted him to do. He was so passionate, so enthusiastic about it, put so much energy into it that he was fatigued as he was doing what the Lord desired him to do. Now, this is effort towards works God has for him. But not only toiling, but struggling with all the energy that God powerfully works in him. So look at those words. Not only toiling, but struggling with all his energy that the Lord has given him. And struggling here is a fighting for, a striving, a earnestly laboring for something. And so as we look at this, okay, yeah, the Lord wants me zealous for good works. No, look at the energy behind this. Look at the enthusiasm. Look at the effort put in. Look at the priority put in to what the Lord has given Paul. There's a striving, a fighting, a laboring. And after doing this, there's a fatigue. Okay, there's a going, sure, I'm wearied because of the things that the Lord is calling me to do. You can see the energy, the effort, and the passion that Paul has for the work God has given him. But also, we can't forget, I want you to see, because there's two things we have to understand this morning. And if we don't understand both equally, you can actually get a misbalanced view on this. Okay? Sometimes we don't see it as right priority, and I want us to see that it is a massive priority to the Lord, that he wants us passionate. Okay, he wants us zealous, this yearning, this desire for good works, but it's not just to burn yourself out, and it's not just for any works. That's where you'll get burnt out in your walk with the Lord. The Lord wants me passionate, he wants me to do all these works, I must just do this for him, do this for him, do this for him. Okay, you're going to find yourself chaos. Is there a point of maybe being wearied and a bit of fatigue in doing what the Lord desires? Yes, there can be those points, but I'm going to show you something in a second. But if I'm just doing what I think the whole time he wants, you're going to run out of steam. Okay, you need to be alert to him, you need to be passionate about it. But over here, I want us to see that it's in God's hands, and his hand on it is important. He is able, Paul here, to pursue these works because of God's filling, God's working powerfully within him. Look at that last piece. He's able to do all of this with all his energy, the Lord's, that he powerfully works within me. And so what that means is not just that the Lord wants to give you a to-do list or certain things like that, but it means that which God desires, we do. And when we do that and execute that with the Lord's help, these actions, these deeds, he will sustain. He will empower. And so when the Lord calls you to do something, it's not in your own strength. It's not just your own desire. But where we're walking in the plan of the Lord and what he desires, he will be powerfully working within us and granting us energy to sustain us to do the works that he's called you to do, you and me to do. And without a doubt, it's almost a rhetorical question. Does he have works for you to do? Yes, even Ephesians 2:10 lets us know that. Okay. But I want us to look at Matthew 5:13 to 16, where a very familiar passage, where it just says, you are the salt of the earth, but if salt has lost its taste, how shall its saltiness be restored? No longer good for anything except to be thrown out and trampled under people's feet. You are the light of the world. A city set on a hill cannot be hidden. Nor do people light a lamp and put it under a basket, but on a stand, and it gives light to all in the house. In the same way, let your light shine before others, so that they may see your good works and give glory to your Father who is in heaven. Now, one of the key things you might not have realized, this actually speaks a lot into Titus. Verse 13 is different to 14. Being the salt is different to the light. Salt inherently is flavorful. Okay, can lose that, but it's from the inside. Okay, salt has flavor. It's not something that's added to it. You have salt and then you add the flavor of salt. Salt comes with its flavor. It is what it is. And that speaks to our character, just as we've seen to be purified within our series. Our character to be purified, to be the salt that the Lord desires, to be adding flavor, to be, there's aspects of healing within salt, to be guided by the Lord and impacting around us. 14 to 16, though, 16 lets us know what being the light is about. And right at the end, it says there that they may see your good works and give glory to your Father who is in heaven. So again, how do we be the light? It is to do good works, good deeds. These things that are excellent, that are worthy of praise, that we've looked at. Okay? But over here, the thing that I want us to see is what is the end aim of it? And the end of 16. It is to give glory to your Father who is in heaven. And so the Lord desires certain things for us to do. He will put certain things in our lives in place for us that he's designed beforehand that we do, but it is for his glory, that we may shine his light. It's not, hey, look at me doing all these things for the Lord, or look at me doing all these good things. Look at me. Yes, I'm good. Okay, well, I'm spiritual. I'm getting it together. Okay, if people see that and acknowledge that, they sometimes will. That's part of life. Okay. But if they do, and they're like, hey, great on that or good on that, or if I'm actually doing what the Lord wants, I'm only doing it because he's granted me the energy to, and he's empowering that doing, and it's for his glory. And so even when we're executing what the Lord desires, it's for his glory. Now, the key thing is, though, is that we need to be in God's hands. And if we are in his hands, then he won't want us just to stay looking like this. You don't see an artist walk around for 5 years like this. Okay? This is in his hands normally. Oh, there's some water. It's in his hands normally to be used. And so if we're in God's hands, then you need to know that he's going to want to use you. You're not in his hands not to be used. And so if we're in his hands, he'll desire that. He wants to sharpen you. He wants to shape you, okay, in order to be used by him. Isaiah 6:8-9 says, and I heard the voice of the Lord saying, whom shall I send and who will go for us? And I said, here I am, send me. And he said, go and say to this people, keep on hearing but do not understand, keep on seeing but do not perceive. Isaiah goes on to be used by the Lord to continue to mention things and to speak as the Lord desires. But here, what I want us to see is just a willingness, a readiness, a zeal. We've seen that in Paul, but we see that here in Isaiah. This willingness, this readiness. Lord, I see what you're wanting to do. And then the Lord asks the question, who can I send to do this? And he's so zealous. He sees what the Lord wants to do, and he's like, here I am. Send me. I'm ready, Lord, to do the works, the deeds, the actions, to say things that you would want and that you desire. We need to have the zeal to do good works. So I want you to see on the one hand this morning, it's not a non-negotiable, but as children of the Lord, we need a desire to be used. Okay? Like we looked at it last week, we're not designed just to be put on a shelf. Oh, that's a very nice paintbrush. Okay? No, we designed there so that the Lord can take us and use us. And he desires to use you and me. That we need to understand. You're not designed to be on the shelf, you're designed to be used. But, and here comes a thing that we need to know for balance over here. In being zealous for works for the Lord, it's with the Lord and sent by the Lord. With the Lord and sent by the Lord. Remember Paul, how zealous he was? Okay, I want you also to remember that God tasked him with those works. Who gave him that assignment? Who met him on the road? Who gave him that life's purpose? Who showed him what things to do there? God. So be zealous for good works, but it was God who revealed to him what those good works were. And Isaiah, great verse for, man, I need to be doing something. Lord, you're looking for people to send, but who did the sending? God. For whose works? The Lord's. Even over there, God said, this is what I need to do. Isaiah volunteered. The Lord said, go. The Lord could have said no. Okay? And we've got to understand that as well. The Lord can say no. Sometimes we can be zealous for good works, and we need to be in this stage first. We need to be zealous for good works for the Lord, but sometimes we can be and go, oh, Lord, let me do that. And you've got to understand that the Lord can say no, as well as go. How do you know if it's the Lord that wants you to do that or not? That's where the rest of the series we've been looking at, sitting at his feet, is so important. Because if I'm going where he's saying no, how much fruit is there going to be? How much joy am I going to find? Is there a chance I get burnt out? Yes. Okay. But if I'm going where he said go, then there can be fruit, fulfillment, joy, peace. Even if it is hard, but he said go, we know that his energy will sustain us. And so that's the key aspect here as well. It's built on first being, and that's what we looked at last week, first being his possession. Being his, being close to him. You be close, you be in his hands, he will direct. He'll direct the strokes of the paintbrush. Can you imagine almost like a paintbrush doing its own thing though? That would be a bit weird, okay? The paintbrush just had a mind of its own, it started to dabble and do its own thing apart from the artist. But a lot of the time, I think that's us, Lord, yes, you want that to be done, Lord. So, that's a cool image you're painting, Lord, but I think this is really cool, Or Lord, yeah, that's a really great image over there, but yeah, Lord, I know you want me to do something good, so I think that is great over there. Ooh, yeah, that's perfect. And so sometimes we need to be zealous, but sometimes we can just be zealous and go, but I'm not going to sit at his feet because he wants me to do. Let me just do it. Then you're doing all of these things. And the image that the Lord maybe was trying to construct the whole time is actually just a simple cross here to show his glory. And so the key thing is to know the image that's going to be painted, we need to be sitting with the artist. And so like last week, be his possession. Sit there. Be ready for good works and be trusting. If you're in the Lord's hands and he is a master artist, he's not like, my son or little kids that might use this as a hammer, or break it or put it in their mouth or their nose or something, okay? A skillful artist is going to know how to look after the brush, going to know its capabilities. He's designed you. And so it's also going, Lord, I trust you. Where you say no, I listen. Where you say go, I also listen. And I know that you have it out for my best and for your glory. And so key thing is be with the artist. God knows the image. He knows the picture. And it was a verse we actually discussed in one of our Connect groups, but Matthew 7, scary verse that we've mentioned a few times, and often in evangelism we use it as well. But just to show us, and this morning, before you read that, just pause. Remember, there needs to be a zeal for God and His work. Okay? There needs to be a zeal, almost like a substitute that's ready to get on. Lord, I'm ready. I'm ready. Whenever you call, I'm ready. If you say go, I'll go. If you say no, I'll stay, but I'm ready. The zeal needs to be there. But why the zeal needs to rest at His feet is because not everyone who says to me, Lord, Lord, will enter the kingdom of heaven, says Jesus, but the one who does the will of my Father who is in heaven. On that day, many will say to me, Lord, Lord, did we not prophesy in your name and cast out demons in your name and do many mighty works in your name? And then I will declare to them, I never knew you. Depart from me, you workers of lawlessness. That's always a verse we use, in evangelism and that as well, because a lot of people mistake the Christian walk for being a good person and doing good things. And over here, Jesus is saying to people who do some crazy things for him in verse 22, okay? And he says to them at the end, depart from me, I don't know you. But their validation was, but Lord, we did so many things for you. But were they doing the things that he desired? Were they at his feet? They weren't. He says, depart from me, I do not know you. And it's interesting because I don't know if you've seen there in the beginning of it, he says, not everyone will enter the kingdom of heaven, but the one who does the will of my Father. These people thought that they were doing his will. They were like, oh, do the will of the Father? Yeah, we prophesied and cast out demons and did many mighty works. But that wasn't the will of the Father. They were doing things that they thought the Lord wanted without sitting. So a key thing is we need to place ourselves firmly in his hands first. Be zealous for good works. Lord, use me. Lord, you'll strengthen me. Even if I feel like my life is on the brink and I can't handle another thing, if you say yes, you will powerfully work in me and give me energy to do what you want me to do. But as I sit here and I'm zealous for good works, Lord, and I want to go, there's certain things that you'll say no to as well. Because you've designed me and you know what you've designed me for. And so a key thing is sitting at his feet with a zealous, ready attitude, being in his hands, that when he says, who can I send? Or I want to send you, we go, yes, Lord, I'm ready to run on the pitch. I'm ready. I'm ready to be used. I'm ready to draw your picture. But again, it starts with sitting at his feet and having the zeal and then trusting him for when he says go, to actually then do what he calls you to do. Do the works. Big, small, doesn't matter. Isaiah's was mainly speaking to a people and challenging them on behalf of the Lord. Paul's was a whole life of service in ministerial aspects. But all through the disciples and the people that Jesus had, even if we look at Zacchaeus, those guys, there were certain things he had for them to do. And so be guided by him in this. I'd love us just to pause and take the time just to pray and go, from our hearts, because my heart, I don't know, everyone's heart can sometimes be drawn to one or the other, where we're ready just to do, but we need to just be alert to what the Lord desires. Or sometimes, we're just like, okay, but I'm comfortable sitting, but the Lord actually desires you to do as well. And so our hearts can sometimes be there. And it doesn't mean I don't want you to use this as an excuse as well sometimes to go, oh man, someone needs help there. But I don't feel like the Lord yet has mysteriously told me. So, I'm going to cut that person off or whatever. It doesn't mean you become a selfish person. Yes, if there's normal small deeds to do or someone to help, the Lord guides us in that. Yes, you can help them. But on an ongoing basis, the things that the Lord desires you to do or bigger things, be guided by him. Be guided by him. And he'll guide your heart, your schedule, your energy, empower you where that's needed, and allow you to say no where that's needed as well. But let's just pray, and won't you just ask the Lord yourself, Lord, help me to sit at your feet, and Lord, help me have the zeal. And then I'd like you to ask the Lord, this characterizes your people. Is there anything that you are wanting me to do for you? Whether it be at home, at work, at church, wherever, is there anything you wanting me to be in at the moment? So won't you just have that conversation with the Lord?